Hi, welcome to another edition of Seriously. I'm Jeff Dixon, where we're taking a look at history. Maybe not the way that you remember history, but maybe discovering some things you didn't know about history. We'll see. You are familiar with the name Gillette. Gillette. Because you're familiar with Gillette razors. What you may not know is King Camp Gillette was a salesman, a tinkerer, and a dreamer. While traveling the country peddling products, he dreamed of creating a utopian society free of poverty, crime, and war. He also dreamed of inventing a way to fame and fortune, but he couldn't cash in on any of his patents, and he filed patents left and right. He was an idea man, no doubt about it. What changed his life was the bottle cap. Seriously? I mean, he's known for razors. The bottle cap changed his life? Yeah, seriously. See, Gillette worked as a salesman for bottle cap inventor William Painter. Painter told Gillette that the key to success was coming up with a product that customers would keep throwing away and buying more of. Gillette then took that information to heart and started spending years making lists of what we would call disposable products. In other words, his goal was to create things that would be used, but after they were used would have to be thrown away. And the idea, of course, is that the customer would come back because they would always need more. So his motto was, don't build anything to last. And that drove him on. One morning in 1895, he picked up his razor to shave. Now, razors in those days had thick steel blades that required frequent stroping to keep them sharp. You had to keep sharpening the blades. Gillette's razor was so dull that he had allowed the razor to dull beyond the ability to sharpen it back again. He had to take it to a cutler to have it honed back down so he could use it again. And it was then, as he was watching that razor blade be reformatted, reshaped, resharpened, if you will, that it hit him. Why not make a paper-thin razor blade so cheap that you could use it a number of times and then throw it away? And what would you have to do? Replace it with another thin blade. In his head, he figured out you could do it more economically. The thin blade would cost less than the thick blade, and yet, when it was all said and done, after it was worn out, you would always need another thin blade. It took him 8 years to perfect this idea. But the Gillette razor that came to market in 1903 changed shaving forever. It also paved the way for the modern disposable culture. If you think about it, how many things do we use today that are just throwaways? It is revolutionary. But all of those revolutionary ideas stem from this first invention that was designed on purpose to be disposable and produced by none other than a man named Gillette. See, he didn't set out to start a whole cultural revolution. But at the end of the day, that's exactly what he created. I mentioned earlier that he was a guy who was on the cutting edge. He had a vision for society. And he wrote about that, actually. He wrote a book called The Human Drift. And in that book, he laid out plans for giant corporations to acquire all the assets of the world, thus eliminating evils of competition. Doesn't that sound like fun, huh? Crazy. But that was his big idea. A utopian city of 60 million people would be built near Niagara Falls, where the waters would be harnessed for electrical power. And he would create this utopian environment where everyone could live in harmony together with no competition. Yeah, that really doesn't work in the world we live in. There's reasons for that. There are actually biblical reasons that we could talk about if this were a different series, a different time, a different place. A little bit pie in the sky, but it reminds you that here is Gillette, and he is another idea guy. That's right. He's an idea guy. And those ideas continue to flow, and that one idea changed not only razors, but it changed culture. What does it mean to you? Well, it means if you got an idea, you keep chasing the idea. You never know where that idea is going to end up. And often in this series, we're talking about the ideas that people have. If you're a follower of Jesus Christ, here's something else I would suggest to you that you may not associate with this idea of being the church in the world. And that's simply this, that you need to be cutting edge. The church, those people who follow Jesus should be the most creative, the most innovative, the most engaging, the most aggressive, the most driven people. Because we live in a world that desperately needs what we have to offer, not because we created it, but because we discovered it. And once we've made the discovery for ourselves, you can never be the same. We know Jesus, and that is what the world needs, Jesus. And so, don't be afraid to be a little cutting edge yourself. Come up with new ideas, new ways of doing things. Don't be afraid, but be bold and be innovative and allow God to take your life and bless it and do things beyond anything you ever imagined. So when people look at you, they're going to go, seriously? That's what you're doing? And you can just smile and say, yeah, and I'm doing it because God told me to. If you do that, you'll find a level of satisfaction and success in life that goes beyond anything you ever imagined. I look forward to joining you next time as we continue this series.